What is up, guys? It's Mason once again from PMChess, and today I'm bringing you another game from the Malogy Online Rapid Invitational Chess Tournament that was played in Nigeria. Now, this game was played in the final stages of the game, and it's a battle for third place between FM Akintoye Abdul Rahman and IM Odion Battle. So let's get right into it. But before that, let us know your comments down below so we can get to you and respond to your comment, because they really help us. Okay, so now let's check this game out. We have e4, knight f6, bishop to g5, the Trompowsky attack, knight to e4, bishop to f4, the Borg variation, which confuses me since it breaks all opening principles by saying don't move the same piece twice. If your opponent is also moving the same piece twice, then it makes sense. Because me, I was thinking maybe something like knight here. Though of course he loses the bishop pair, but then yeah, that's not what was played. We have bishop to f4, g5, and then bishop to c1. All this has been played before, but in this position already, black has a big decision to make. f3 is the threat here, taking up the central squares. f3 e4 is the threat here, taking up these central squares. So black has to make a very big decision. Do I let go of my g5 pawn for the sake of challenging the center and probably getting some compensation on the king side, or do I save the pawn and lose the center? And here black chooses to lose the center, but I think better would be d5, because after d5, f3, knight to d6, you have bishop takes and then rook to not c6, you have rook to g8, rook to g8 here, attacking the bishop to f4, and then we have e6. And from here you can see that black has a lot of chances to create threats or pressure on white's king side. So it might even be a dangerous concept to castle queen side. So despite losing the pawn, I think black has enough compensation for the pawn. But okay, he plays h6 here, which is not bad at all. We have f3, knight to d6, and e4 taking the center, bishop to g7, and then white striking, trying to take more of the initiative here by playing h4. Why h4? You weaken your opponent's king side, and if black doesn't take, you actually get a chance to trade off and further make black's lack of activity or development quite more pronounced. Let me put it that way. So here we have g takes, knight to c3, knight to c6, and then bishop to e3. e5 doesn't work here because we have knight here, and you start dropping your central pawns, which is actually not good. So we have bishop to e3 here, f5, and f5 is an inaccuracy. Why? Because your king side is very weak and your pieces are not developed. So the idea black should be having here is to try and get some activity in. f5 in no way increases the activity of the bishop and the queen, and rather creates more weaknesses, because imagine these pawns get traded off. This queen has some fun on the h5 square, or if white gets the chance to play f4, this diagonal becomes very scary. So I think this is slightly inaccurate in that black doesn't raise the activity of his pieces. But then the merit to it is that I think he was perceiving e5 being played, so he could get his knight in here, as we'll see in the game. So yeah, so slightly better would be e5, which is more direct. You open up your queen, and what do you call it? You can even castle in this position and try and get your bishop in with bishop to b6 and bishop to b7. So I think this is more direct, and actually even kind of slows down white's pushing of this pawn, because if we have d5 here, knight here, and if bishop takes, pawn takes, actually black is quite fine here. So e5 actually gives black a chance to solidify his position in this sense. So here we have f5, e5, knight to f7, and then we have f4 here. So already the diagonal is open, the floodgates are open. We have e6, d5, e takes d5, and knight takes d5. Now knight takes d5 is also, again, one regular theme you see in this game is the captures that were made. Slightly better is queen to d5, which slows down the d6 push, because with queen here you have threats of bishop to c4 adding more pressure here. So let's say knight to b4, which is going to be the best move. After queen to b3, attacking the knight, a5, castles kingside, d6. You realize that black has more things going on for him. He can even try to open up the center. He can try to open up the center, or even just push e6 here and just close in on what do you call it? I think e6 wins the knight, right? Yeah, e6 wins the knight. So you realize that white has so many things going in for him in this position. White has many things going for him in this position. Okay, so we have knight takes, which allows d6, and after d6, queen to h5. So despite him not trading well, he has the idea that he can add more pressure with this queen to h5 move. So his moves are not wrong. It's just that if you consider yeah. So we have d takes e5, castles kingside, again adding more pressure. If this knight ever moves to check, for knight has a threat of discovered attack winning the queen. Okay, well, that's not it. But then we have knight to d4, bishop to c4, which is also a slight inaccuracy here, because you can be more forward, or you can strike more at white if you play bishop takes here, because after bishop takes here you force pawn takes, and after pawn takes, rook to e1 check, king to f8, and then bishop to c4, which is actually more forceful in the sense that now black can't castle. In the other variation, black has the opportunity to castle. Another theme here is, since white castles queenside, you should always be aware of this move, queen coming into g5, because if the pawn was ever traded off, queen coming into g5 will force the trade of queens, and that actually favors black because the queen adds more pressure in an attacking position. Okay, so let's get back. We have here bishop to c4, which allows black to get a little bit more active with bishop to e6. And of course, as I'm saying this, don't be getting the idea that white is losing anyway. As always, let me just give you a sneak peek at the engine. You can see white is totally winning here, even despite him not playing captures in the previous moves. So white is actually just fine here. So we have bishop to e6, bishop takes d4, bishop takes d4, bishop takes e5, bishop takes e5, and slightly inaccurate is pawn takes, because if you remember, we've talked about this g5 square because it comes with check, forcing the trade of queens. So in this position, slightly better will be actually rook takes d5, and if queen comes in here with check, sorry, what am I saying? And if what was the move here? And if bishop captures with check, king moves in, queen comes in here, we have the extremely crafty rook check, queen, bishop takes, queen takes with check, king moves, and knight to f3. I know you're losing a pawn here, but then the point is we are having activity against black, and we have so much pressure on his skin since it's even in the center here. So losing the rook is not really much of a bad idea, though in this position I think the preferred move is queen to e2. That's what the engine prefers. Okay, so let's get back into it. We have f takes e5, c6, bishop takes d5, c takes d5, e6, and then queen to g5, forcing the trade of queens. Queen takes, knight takes, rook takes d5, knight takes e6, rook takes h4. And basically we are getting into the ending, and white is very much ahead, but black has drawing chances, especially if he can get this into a rook and pawn and game, he has more of a chance. But most of his advantage has flickered off. Right now you see the analysis, what it says here. So as always, endgame is not my specialty, but then I'll try and speak on the important points here. So we have rook to c4, castles kingside, rook to c7, trying to take the pawns, rook to f7, force the trade of rooks, rook to d7 check. And here what black does is, rather than just protect the pawns, which was actually very possible with moves like b6, he decides that he would allow his opponent to get this check because he can activate his king more, and that goes a little bit in his favor. Rook takes b7, knight to e6, knight to e2, f4, rook to h7, king to g6, rook to e7, king up, king f5, rook check, king to e5, rook h7, knight to d4. And I was wondering why not just take, because I mean the more pieces that trade off, you win. But I also remember that okay, rook endgames can somehow be drawn, and the line the engine gives here is knight takes, king takes, rook takes, rook to g8 attacking, queen, rook to d6, king to e3, and rook to d2. And the problem is it's going to be a little bit hard for this rook to leave the defense of this pawn, because once this pawn drops or once the rook gets into the position, I think black is okay, or black can even draw. So it makes it a little bit difficult for white to push his own ideas in this position. Okay, so it moves like that. So now let's get back into it. We have rook to e7 check rather than taking, king to f6, rook to e4, knight takes, rook takes, rook to d8. I was thinking maybe just pushing the pawn rather than rook to d8, but okay, I can't really, maybe he's just trying to keep the king locked in this part of the board. c4, trying to get his king some luft or activity. h5, king to c2, h4, b4. Remember, as the pawns are being pushed down the board, the more closer they are to promoting, the more deadly they become. King to f5, king to c3, king to g4, c5, and then h3. If you refuse to take, your opponent is winning. So takes with check, and then you don't have to take king to g3. And now you are sort of escorting this pawn down the board smoothly. No matter what white does, this pawn could definitely get to this square. So now we have king to c4, f3, rook to c2, f2, rook to c1, rook to d2, king to c3, rook takes a1, c6, rook to e2, rook f1, rook e1, rook takes, king takes, and king to c4, king to e3, king c5, and rook c1 check. Now in this position is just drawn. Black can just keep on shuffling with checks, and I don't think black gets anything out of it. He can just be shuffling with the checks, and I think he's fine, as he was doing here. But then the moment he plays this move, which is rook to g1, he makes a grave mistake, because white gets this move in c5, rook to g8, king to d7, king, and then rook to g7, rook g7 check. Now the problem here, this is an actually interesting point of the game. That's why I went through the whole end game rather than just skip it. In this position, white is completely winning. Why? This rook cannot keep checking the king forever, because now the king can shimmy his way here and promote the pawn no matter what. And no matter what black tries to do, this position is winning. Even if he does stop the promoting the pawn, this position is winning. Let's check it out. So rook g7 check, we have king to c8, and if rook to g5, trying to get behind the king and keep checking, the king still advances. King to b7, rook to b5 check, king to a6, rook takes, and you promote. So after king check here, after the king attacks the rook, I mean, how are you stopping this? Or maybe check here, king takes, and you come in here, the pawn is still promoting, and this black king cannot stop the promotion of either of these two pawns. He might capture one by one promote, because we already have this king in the shepherding position right here. So there's nothing that black can do. Or another option is after king to c8, rook g8 check, king to b7, rook to g7, king to b8, and if rook checks again, we already know that's a promotion. Pawn promoting to a queen, and after rook takes, king takes, you realize that this king cannot stop these two pawns. They are very strong. This is the principle of two weaknesses. If he goes for one, the other promotes. So white is clearly winning here, but for some reason FM Akintoye didn't see this, and he FM Akintoye didn't see this and just went for the continuous repetition, which led into a draw. So again, an interesting game. I always say interesting game because they always pique my interest. I just enjoyed how this whole thing went with the taking of the center and everything, and it taught me a valuable lesson that though engine say certain things about positions, to a human perspective, they're not really that obvious. Of course, I had some friends far higher rated than me help me analyze this game, and even in this position, which is dominant, let me just turn on the engine here, this position which is very dominant, they were like, it's not really clear. it looks winning, and white has all the fours going for him, but you just can't tell. And I was shocked that that's what they would say. But I felt like, okay, wait, I'm looking at pawn structure. White has, I mean, like 3.9 lines or 2.9 lines. I don't know how you calculate them. Double isolated pawns. I didn't see how this could be in any way good for drawable for black, but then they said it was quite unclear and it could end in a draw. So actually I told them that this game ended in a draw. I didn't give them the full game. I gave them just the bits and pieces of it, and they were like, yeah, they are not sure they ended in a draw despite how everything looked. But the painful part, I'm sure he has FM Akintoye, he has analyzed this game. The most painful part about this whole thing is in the end game, where he didn't see the resource of after rook to g7, king to c8. I mean, this would have just won him the game. But I think he still went on to win 3rd place, if I remember my article very well. So as always, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it anytime you watch our videos. I must say, these analysis videos are quite hard to do, but they are quite enjoyable to do, because I realize that when I analyze these games, when I play my own games, I see the ideas, and it makes it easier for me to play my own games as well. And I hope it also helps you guys learn, because that's the main purpose of this channel, to boost the awareness of chess and to train anyone who is interested. So of course we do offer training services, but then yeah, just join our streams and you will learn a lot. As always, twitch.tv/pen_Mason. We stream Mondays, Wednesdays and Saturdays. Mondays and Wednesdays at 10 p.m. on Twitch, 10 p.m. GMT on Twitch, and Saturdays at 12:30 p.m. GMT on both YouTube and Twitch. So I will see you guys in the streams. I hope you like this game, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.